All right, I'm here with Tyler Eatherton. Tyler, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Tyler Eatherton. I serve as the head of middle school and junior high at Little Rock Christian Academy. So oversee grades 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking some time to answer some of these questions for us. We'll start off with what would you tell your younger self about leadership and management?
My younger self. Number one, that you can do it. It's done if you have the right heart and you have the right intentions.
Yeah,
So I think really the concept of servant leadership is so appealing to me in so many ways, just because I think it flips the traditional org chart. And so really as leaders, it doesn't mean that you're the one that's on the stage, that is the loudest one, or you're the most opinionated, or that you have all the answers, but instead it's you're the first one that's willing to serve.
yeah,
And that's every capacity and every person that is over your care in a way, because you're down at the bottom. And so having that realization, I think, makes leadership really approachable, but also just the heart for it and the reward is super great. So yeah.
yeah, that's good. This may kind of uh, go with what you were just saying, but what piece of advice would you give a new leader?
Have the hard conversations early.
Okay.
I think depending on whatever your temperament is for leadership, I think there are some people that are really quick to kind of come in guns blazing, or they have a really clear vision. Um, Learning from my mom, who was a district principal for 20 something years, her big advice is do change really slow and don't change anything your first year. And
Yeah,
so for me going in, it was really, I want to observe before I ever change or move things around. But at some point, you have to be willing to make the big moves. You have to be willing to cut people out if they're not fitting in what ecosystem that you're trying to develop. And so for me, based on my temperament, I love the aspect of taking time, caring for people, serving for people. The hard part for me is the hard conversations.
hmm,
You have to have them often, early, and frequent. Because then when the time comes where you have to part ways or you are requiring growth, if you haven't honored that individual by having those hard conversations early, you're doing them a huge disservice and you're doing yourself a huge disservice as a leader. So for me, I learned that the hard way my third year. And ever since then, if I see something I don't love or see something that fits with the mission and vision that we're doing, we need to have a hard conversation.
hmm.
It's done in love, but it has to be done immediately.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you know now that you wished you had known earlier in your career? I know you kind of already touched on some of that, but
Um, I don't know. I think the importance of knowing your budget is really important.
yeah.
And overestimating surprise expenses, I think that took me off guard.
Hmm.
My first year in leadership, we went in the red, and so I had to get super creative of how we could find those extra funds. But there's just so many things that you don't realize are going to cost, from toilet paper in the bathrooms to hand soap, to those things that you never can fully budget well for. Having enough cushion, I think, is really important to stay balanced in your budget. And also being somebody that keeps your budget in a healthy place so that way you can promote people in a healthy and steady way. Because
Hmm.
unless people, your high performers, are compensated accordingly, you're going to lose them. And
Yeah.
so creating space over a long period of time to keep incrementally paying them better
Hmm.
is huge in the budgeting process.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so kind of transition a little bit. What do you think makes a great leader?
Um, Humility and vulnerability. To me, what makes a good leader, obviously that's different in whatever field that you're in.
Hmm.
Trying to be a vulnerable leader in like the law world, that probably won't go well for you. But in terms of in a Christian school, missional, educational environment, modeling that for our students to be vulnerable through acts of courage, and then humble in the work that we do, I think pays dividends because as a leader, this job isn't about me. It's about the great things and great work that my students do, but especially what my teachers do.
Mm.
They're the true daily heroes, the true daily leaders. And so I need to find pedestals to put them on and to give them lots of praise. So humility, vulnerability, step into hard conversations, praise, praise, praise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Um, how do you achieve work-life balance? And do you have any tips for the rest of us?
Hmm. I have theoretical answers for that. Uh,
Easier said than done, maybe.
it is. And you just, and I'm sure in any field, like you will just never have enough time to get everything done.
Mhm.
Especially in leadership is people work. And so in people work, it's long processes because it requires long intentional conversations. And so, and even just like whether you're working or not, because it's people work, there's so much thought that goes into everything. I don't just like walk into a conversation willy nilly. I've thought about it for hours.
Mm.
What is one thing I want to say? What is the right thing to say? How do I craft vision in what I'm trying to sell? It's a lot of thinking work. And so I don't know if you ever turn that off. But in terms of like the task-based work, if you can keep it within the confines of your actual paid day, I think that that's super helpful. But I haven't mastered this. I don't know who has done this well. I try to leave when I can, but um, I don't know, duty calls. And
Yeah.
so I also know that this whole concept of work-life balance is also new in our culture. And so I don't know if we've seen fully what that looks like and what is the long-term reward or how to do that sustainably. Because at some point you can claim work-life balance, but then you could lose your job because you're not getting your stuff done. And
Yeah.
so I think until industries shift as to what we believe work looks like, I think that that concept of work-life balance is constantly going to be in tension. And
Mhm.
so there has to be a societal shift and a corporate shift. I think band-aids that we can put on are leaving at the right times, the power of no, saying no more often than you say yes, and not losing yourself in things that don't actually matter, which
Mhm.
is easy to do.
Yeah.
If things don't fit the mission and vision, cut them. It's not helpful. It's wasting your time. And then I also just think creating spaces in your week, margins to have fun. And so whatever that looks like for you, that's a passion that you can do in community with others, I think is
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I will say the hard part for me is I just love my job. And
Yeah.
so, Matt Chandler says like the meaning of life is doing deep work in community over a long period of time. Like those are his three indicators. And so when I think about my outside life, I think about D Group with you and the people that we do life with. It's deep work in community over time. I love it. And then when I think about my work here, it's also deep work in beautiful community. I love who I work with and I love the
Mhm.
work that we do and I love doing it over time. And so for me, both feed me,
Mhm.
both drain me. So it's kind of
Yeah.
it's a hit or miss. So I love all of it. That's the
Yeah.
hard part.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Um, okay. What have you done that has worked, has been successful in fostering relationships with employees? I guess in this case, it would be probably teachers for you, be the main direct reports that you have.
Yeah. I make it my goal every week to have an intentional conversation with every teacher. So I have 45 teachers under my care. And so trying to incrementally space that out enough to where I can get to know them on a really deep and intimate level, I think is really important. So I try to have 9 meaningful conversations every day.
Yeah.
And so usually that happens first thing in the morning. So I get here early, I get ready for the day. And then as teachers are coming in, I'm meeting them as they're getting set up for the day and
Mhm.
just trying to remember like what's going on in their lives. What is the thing that we've been praying for together? How can I encourage them? And then also, how can I better them in their craft? I think really what I have found, which is really interesting, is as much people as often as people leave their jobs because of burnout, they leave it just as much because they're not growing. And so the burnout piece, like I can encourage, but really they have to master that on their own.
Mhm.
growth part I can own. So how can I keep pushing you into something new? Where are areas that I see your strengths that we can utilize? Those things, but that only happens through intentional conversation.
Yeah.
So just seeking them out and then knowing what's going on in their lives, knowing their
Yeah.
spouses' names, their kids' names, and their hurts and their passions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have anything specific that you've done to encourage creative thinking within the school, within your teachers, I guess students as well?
Yeah. So in our school, we use the Harkness method of discussion. And so with that method, really the teacher themselves, they completely remove themselves from the class. So, I mean, they're still physically there, but in terms of
Sure.
discussion,
Yeah.
they're not. So all of their instructional work happens the class period before. And so it's really like teaching kids to ask good questions, to make connections, to really grapple and look for ways that they can healthily debate a concept. And then we try to really mentor them and model what it looks like to not be offended easily. Like, let's wrestle through this for the sake of wrestling, but still know that we love one another. And so then that class period really is them wrestling through a concept or a piece of text. And the teacher is this there to guide the emotions of the space and guide the complexity of the conversation. And so I think having that mindset with our students has been huge. So we have great diversity of thought. For our teachers, anytime we have faculty meetings, we do the same structure.
Hmm.
So if I have an initiative that year of like, say, I want to improve our test quality,
Hmm.
and I want our tests to go deeper rather than surface level, then I'll pull up a great article that's research based, and then teachers will prepare for that on the front end. I'll usually give them my thoughts on it so that at least they know where I stand.
Yeah.
That helps them navigate the space before they come in. And then when they come in, we just wrestle together. And so I think that that's healthy in terms of they have say in the direction. And if I don't have teacher agency, which I like far better that word than I like buy-in, because buy-in says that like you agree with it. Agency says you want to take it and run with it. And so
Mhm.
if I don't have teacher agency in this or creativity, then it's not an initiative that I'm going to do because all I'm going to do is fight with them on it.
Yeah.
Or it tells me that I need to have further discussions with them or further PD, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is our teachers write their own evaluation tool. So we give them their evaluation tool at the start of the year. We fix it up, we make it better based on what they believe good teaching is. And so that's the tool that I use to evaluate them because it's what they've approved. And
Hmm.
so I think them knowing that they've set the standard and the rubric for which they're evaluated as professionals, I think creates a lot of safety and buy-in as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's awesome. Do you think the teachers end up holding themselves to a higher standard because they're writing their own evaluation as opposed to like just a standard thing you guys came up with?
yeah, and in fact, I think a lot of them, because they know the tool so well, and because we've spent 20 minutes arguing one word of like, how do we want? I think in their minds, they're like, well, I can do better than that.
Yeah.
So often, yes, but at least it creates really clear common language. Just clarity is kindness, and so I try to be as clear as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's interesting. Um, do you have any tips on building strong teams and keeping those teams motivated?
Yeah, so we have lots of different teams. So I have a leadership team that I work with. So they each have different facets of our culture that they cultivate. And then I have department leader team. So I work with them and then they have people under them. And then I also work with grade level teams. So I steward teams and then within their teams, they have teams. And so I think for them, just the aspect of even having ownership over something is huge. Every teacher is over something, and every teacher is a follower of something. And so we try to be really intentional about that as well. So everybody in our building is a leader. That's the clear fact. On paper, I'm the head leader, but really the only thing that I lead is mission and vision. All of them lead in lots of different aspects based on their individual giftings. And so I think knowing that them having the ability to put on and take off hats of leader and follower, they've learned of like, hey, in this meeting, I'm a leader and I appreciate all these individuals that are good followers in the initiative that I'm trying to pass. When I'm in somebody else's initiative or vision, I want to be a great follower for them. And so
Yeah.
I just, it's a collegiality that is really unique at our school.
Yeah. Yeah. And understanding the role in the different contexts.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Tyler, thanks so much for taking some time to share your wisdom with us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.